Right, and we're live. Hi guys, just waiting a minute for this to go. Okay, so hi guys, I'm Desi. Welcome to Bridging the Realm. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope from wherever you'll be tuning in, you very much enjoyed this topic today. It's quite different from anything I've had on my podcast before, but as you all probably already know, I like to try out different things. And today's topic is actually about self-love, relationships, and everything to do with the more conscious way of relationships and of dealing with our own self-love and our own authenticity, which I think is a topic that's very much has been coming up in the recent years, and more now because there's just been so many changes in terms of our relationships with ourselves, our relationships with the people around us. So there's just so much for us to learn, to relearn. We're learning to see ourselves from a completely different perspective, seeing each other's relationships from a completely different perspective. And I think it'll be very interesting to tune into what's really going on in terms of the relationship side of our world, and everything to do with love, because as we probably already know, we have been changing how we see love. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my amazing guest, Dawn Richard. She is a spiritual explorer, a love alchemist, and a sacred relationship activator who started out her profession as a professional couples therapist for over almost 20 years. Dawn is also the creator of an amazing podcast called Wake Up to Real Love, where she explores all things from authentic relationships to self-love. And as a transformational love, sex, and relationship coach, Dawn's mission is to help people heal their relationship with themselves and to those around them. So that's a pretty special mission, and I'm really excited to speak about this topic with Dawn today. So Dawn, thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
Hi, Desi. I'm so glad to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Thank you. Yeah, as we just mentioned just before we went live, there's been obviously this is quite a weird time to speak about this whole topic of relationships, of self-love, but it's probably also the best time to speak about this because there's just been so many changes, and as we are now forced to either spend time with ourselves or with those people around us, we are starting to see, things from a completely different perspective, where we're literally forced to confront some of our shadows to do with relationships, with ourselves, with everything to do with kind of like self-love. So how are you first, and how have you been dealing with the times that we're in right now?
Well, when you were talking about learning, I just thought now we need to unlearn some things as well, right? Because this is a time where we are forced. Well, we can choose. We're forced to face ourselves, and we're forced to face the people that we're in confined quarters with. And some people choose not to ever face themselves their entire life. And this is what I'm trying to help people do. I think a lot of people carry around a lot of judgment, self-judgment, and judgment of each other. And so that along with judgment comes shame, blame, criticism, guilt. And these are the things that are all normal in the human condition, right? Because of all of our experiences, people that have hurt us while growing up, people that are hurting us currently now. And this is what I wanted to do in my own podcast. I wanted to normalize people's struggles because we all struggle. And I told you right before we got on, when you were asking me, hey, is it okay if we talk about relationships? And I'm like, yeah, because I love it. And then of course, last night I experienced the perfect storm in my own house.
Tell me about it.
With what's going on. So, I live with my two relatively grown kids. I've got a 16-year-old daughter and an 18-year-old son, and a 21-year-old son who lives away from us, lives a couple hours away from us, but he's been staying with us because he felt really isolated, living by himself, and all of his work has gone online. It's shifted. And so, whenever you're in a system, everybody's energy contributes to that system, right? And so when one person is feeling really stressed out, even if they're not saying anything, you feel it. But you have to be aware. You have to be aware of what's going on for you personally, as well as paying attention and being sensitive to what's going on with the people around you. So, these are, I feel like in this time, we're forced to face ourselves and to really try to figure out like what's valuable and meaningful for us, as well as all of the things that we thought were essential in our day-to-day busy, crazy lives. We're realizing maybe that's not so important, right?
Yeah.
So it's a great opportunity for all of us to learn how to have compassion for ourselves and learn how to have compassion for each other.
Yeah, totally. I'm totally with you on that. And this whole, I mean, you're quite a big explorer in terms of the spiritual stuff as well. And you're very much aware of the thing with the energy and how everything on the outside is just a reflection on what's going on the inside.
Yeah.
So is this kind of how you're seeing things? If there's so for example, if you've just had this sort of family issue, do you see it as, okay, I kind of need to go in and I need to see what's going on with me on the inside? How do you approach these situations, and especially now for everyone else who's listening, who might be listening, who might be in the same situation? What tips would you give to people? How do you approach these?
Well, this was the thing last night. There was a big blowout in our house. Doesn't really matter the story. It just matters everybody's reactions to the stress, right? And so all of us reacted in not very healthy ways. Things were said that were really hurtful. And there was just this huge feeling of disconnection, right? Which is what happens, under stress, we regress, so that whole really primitive reptilian brain that goes into fight, flight, or freeze, and everybody reacts differently. It's not like this, oh, I'm going to choose to run away today, or I'm going to choose to, put up my fists. It's just this automatic response. And so that happened in my house. And, my oldest son, he just wanted to leave. He just wanted to leave. And I said, please, can you just stay so that we can have a conversation and like bring it down, because all of us had a part. All of us, this is where you have to face yourself. You have to take responsibility for what part. What did I say that was harmful? And this is how I like to break it, how I used to break it down with my couples that I worked with. Everything that you do or say can either be helpful for the relationship or can be harmful for the relationship. And in the moment, we don't always act nicely, right?
It's more we react, isn't it? We're reacting to something rather than
yes, we're reacting instead of responding. So it was my goal and intention last night to stop the reactions and, start to internally self-reflect about what's going on inside of me. What's, try to help my kids say what's going on inside of you. And it really came down to, I'm feeling really stressed. There are all these external factors that I feel like are not in my control, which a lot of us are experiencing, jobs that we can't go to, people that we can't see, people that are stressing us out in our own homes. And, because of our you know, parameters of try to stay in as much as possible, you know, keep physically distant, you know, people don't know how to just be.
Mm.
And so it comes out in all of these different reactions, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I I don't always do it, but you know, later I always try to figure out what's the higher perspective, like challenging myself to take responsibility and be accountable for the ways that I'm showing up in relationship. And it could be just relationship with myself. Am I beating myself up? Am I, you know, judging and criticizing myself? Am I feeling not good enough? Am I feeling afraid? Am I feeling insecure? Do I have a lot of self-doubt? Um,
Mm.
okay, so that's one aspect, right? Facing yourself. Where are those places in my life where I'm not loving and accepting myself?
Mm.
And that's really the higher perspective, because I believe that we are all born pure love
Mm.
and spirit, and throughout our lifetimes we have all of these situations and circumstances in our life that cause us to doubt that, and that block us from seeing that truth. And so I feel like you come to a certain point in your life where you just feel so badly that you're like, I know this can't be what this life is meant to be. And, you know, so Rumi has this amazing quote. Can you hold on a second? It's like right in front of me. Um, Rumi, the ancient Sufi poet, I really adore his work. I mean, I think it's timeless. And one of my favorite quotes is, "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it."
Wow.
Yeah,
Pretty much explains it. Yeah.
that is. So, you know, so all of these ways that we disconnect from ourselves. And I think this is what happens in relationships too. When you're feeling disconnected from yourself, it's very hard to connect with somebody else. You know, so your own sense of disconnection prevents you from connecting authentically and intimately and vulnerably with the people that you love and care about. And I think, you know, even from the umbilical cord, we're wired for connection, right? And I think this is the one thing about what's going on right now that most of us, I think, are realizing. We are interconnected. We are dependent upon one another, no matter how independent you live your life, no matter how, you know, some people that are introverts, you know, prefer staying inside more, but even introverts are feeling lonely right now. Even introverts are feeling disconnected and want that connection. And it and and here again, it goes back to connecting with your source.
Mm.
How connected are you? I know the times in my life where I have felt not myself. I've felt um, anxious. I felt depressed. I felt afraid. Those are the times when I'm not really trusting in myself and trusting in my source.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it goes back to that kind of having that spiritual connection, isn't it? That's well, inside of yourself, that spiritual connection with yourself and with your, I guess, the universe, and just having that trust that you're not completely by yourself. You might be physically right now, but you're never
Mhm.
really alone. But then on the physical level, it's very much, you know, they say that now we're in a kind of an epidemic, loneliness epidemic, because there are a lot of people that are lonely, and right, especially right now, there's so many people that are, you know, doing the whole lockdown in isolation, and they're completely alone. They don't have anyone. So it's
Mhm.
pretty, I guess it just makes you question why, how is it that with 7 billion people in the world, we're still so lonely? Like,
Feeling alone.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing too. I mean, even in my own marriage, I mean, I got divorced a year ago after 27 years of marriage. And I'm sure there are a lot of people out there right now who experience what I experience. I'm living with this person that I love very deeply, sleeping right in bed next to him and feeling completely alone at the same time, even though he's physically right next to me.
What does that feel like, on the inside? How do you even interpret that feeling? Because physically you can see you're with someone, but on the inside you're not.
No, on the inside, I felt like in my gut, I felt this hollowness. It's like a piece of me had been ripped out of my heart. I mean, this is what heartbreak is. It's that sense of um
It's a
like
separation, isn't it?
it's
Separation.
a real separation. It's a real separation because, I mean, when I took my vows, it's like I promised to love you for better, for worse. And there was a lot of worse. There was a lot of better. I'm not saying there was a lot of better. There were a lot of good things in our relationship, but there was this overall sense of disconnection, this sense of I can't show up to you um, authentically. I can't say what's really going on for me because I feel like I'm going to be shut down. I'm going to be judged. I'm going to be criticized. I'm going to be shamed or blamed. Um, I'm not going to be accepted. I'm not going to be seen. I'm not feeling seen, understood, or accepted. And I think these are the three things that we all desire. This is part of love. It's like being fully seen for who we are, even when we show up in our messiness and our anxiety and our fears and our insecurities and our vulnerabilities, to know that this is really interesting. I just saw this last night or the other night. To have somebody there that says, I got this, or I got you, like I'm here for you, I'm supporting you. Just like when we were a baby, most of us, and had, somebody loving, caring for us, no matter how much I was crying, how much I was kicking and flailing, somebody was there saying, it's going to be all right. You're going to be okay. You are okay.
Yeah. It's that sense of security and safety, isn't it? That
Yeah.
someone is there to support you. It's like no
Yeah.
matter what, they're there to hold space for you. I think that's a big one where people can just hold space for you. You don't necessarily have to, do anything for them, but they're just
No.
there. They're just there to just be there for the sake of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's not I need somebody to fix this for me. I don't need somebody to fix this for me. I mean, maybe I do, maybe there are some sort of physical things that I need help with. But it's more this just internal of, you can trust me to lean on me, when you're feeling like this, when you're feeling weak and like you want to just collapse. You want somebody to catch you, to catch you when you feel like falling.
Mm.
And
So is this quite a common thing from your years of experience, being a couples therapist? Is this one of the biggest blocks in people's relationships that has ultimately just, led to
yes,
separation?
yes, yeah. And it's really interesting because I saw this live interview with Brian Reeves. He does a lot of work in the couples world, and I was reading after I saw his interview. I was reading through a lot of his stuff, and he had this great analogy about, the masculine energy. And I'm not talking gender, it has nothing to do with it, gender, because we all hold both masculine and feminine energies within us. And the masculine energy is more about doing, showing up, being strong, protective, action oriented, giving, right? Even anatomically, men are built to give, right? To give life. And women are built to receive life, right? And to create life. So women are more about receiving, being open, sort of being nurturing and caring and gathering and, building community. And so in the masculine terms, it's, I'm here for you, I got this. And in the feminine terms, it's, I am open to receiving you and I trust you. I trust you that you got this. And I got this so you can trust me. Right? So this is what happens in couples where one person doesn't show up with I got this, and it causes the other person to say, I don't trust you. And it's not masculine or feminine, couples ebb and flow with this, but even internally with yourself, for yourself to merge these energies and to tell yourself, I got this, whatever you're going through. And for you to say to yourself, I trust you that you got this. Right? But it starts, for for me, because I believe it's a divine triumvirate, this masculine, feminine, and the divine energy all connected, right? And so when we disconnect from any part of ourselves, it breaks that sacred triangle. And so when you're in a relationship, the same, I believe, is true, that when any person breaks that part of the triangle, that's the system, and the system doesn't work well.
Yeah, totally. So do you see, because that's, as you said, that's on the outside with another person, but also within, on the inside, right? Our own masculine and feminine, if they're not working or if they're not balanced, the energies, then
they're not balanced
ultimately, and that reflects on the outside. So have you seen that in, for example, with the couples that you've seen, once they started working on themselves, has that reflected on their relationship and on the outside?
Well,
or have they got to even that realization that they need to work on themselves rather than complain that the other person's not doing this or that?
Yes, I think that happens a lot. In my own relationship included, I was queen of judgment and criticism and blame, until I realized, okay, I don't know if people have heard this before, but when you point, your finger at somebody else, you still got 3 fingers pointing back at yourself, right? So even if you don't really like how somebody else is behaving, you have to look at yourself and say, how am I contributing in a way that is not helpful, right? That's harmful. What am I doing to help this situation? What am I doing to harm this situation? And so this was the thing in my own relationship, because we even went to therapy 4 different times for quite long periods of time. And I recognized the things that I really needed to start working on. There were things inside of me, my own fears and insecurities and sense of abandonment and loneliness and disconnection that I have carried with me from my childhood, even though I had a great parental role models. But we moved every few years. And so I was constantly being taken out and put into these situations where I was sort of lonely and disconnected. And I had to I had to build new relationships over and over and over in my life. And so I had to take responsibility in my own marriage for the ways that I was acting scared or feeling abandoned or whatever. I had to come to this place where I had to learn how to self-soothe. I had to self-soothe. A lot of times I think we rely on other people to take care of us, to soothe us, which if you're in a loving relationship, your other person should want to do that for you, first of all. But if they're not, you need to, well, even if they are, you still have to learn to self-regulate. You have to learn to create your own sense of peace within yourself. You have to learn to create an environment of peace around you so that you invite people to join you in your peaceful state instead of going into somebody else's anxious state or depressed state. And so even though, I mean, this is a roundabout way to answer your question, Desi, sorry.
Oh, interesting.
But when I started showing up for myself, because I was not happy, right? I was feeling very lonely, very disconnected, not happy. Um, and I was really suppressing my own sense of joy. And so I had to figure out, what do I need to do to take care of myself, regardless of what's going on in my relationship. And when you start to do that, you build this whole new life and way of being for yourself, of how you want to show up in the world, how what kind of things you want to attract into your life. And I could do all the work on myself that I was capable of doing, and my partner could still not take responsibility for his stuff. And so the relationship was not changing.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's a
this,
two-way street, isn't it? So it has to come from the other person as well. But that's where this whole concept of self-love comes in, because you actually started to think about your own happiness and your own joy. And
mhm,
there's only so much you can do for the other person. But once you
mhm,
start taking responsibility for yourself, then you can start making more conscious decisions from there about your own happiness, which is what you did with getting
yeah,
divorced, but then doing all these amazing things which you are now doing, and on top of that you're a dancer, you do all these crazy things that even like I
travel.
don't. Yeah, so it's pretty amazing. Like how, well, what have you learned through this process with, because I feel like this is something that a lot of people are now becoming a lot more aware of, and this whole, the conscious way of being or having this relationship with
Mhm.
yourself or with others. It's really about the inner peace first, and then that's being reflected. So what have you seen over the years of doing this work on yourself and with other people as well? Do you see like a huge change happening with people in terms of how they see relationships and how we
Yeah,
rely on other people?
yeah. Um, we, okay, this is the thing. Like, when you start to become more aware of your own internal emotional world, this is where it starts. You have to take responsibility for, this isn't working for me. These old coping mechanisms that, like, fight or flight, right? Or freeze, fight or flight or freeze. It was a way that my brain and my ego developed in order to create this false sense of safety and security and protection, like, I'm going to protect myself. And when you do that, you push other people away. This is what happens, right? And so when you push people away and push people away and push people away, the people on the receiving end can only take so much. And when I talk about this self-love and taking care of myself, I think there's this misconception that taking care of myself is being selfish. There's this whole these cultural and societal expectations. Don't be so selfish. Well, I want to go dance. I want to go take dance classes. Well, don't be so selfish. You need to stay home and take care of the kids. Well, I've been taking care of them for 18 hours already today. I'd really like to do something for myself. It's not, it's self-care is really self-preservation. And I make the analogy to a full gas tank, right? When you have a full gas tank, you can go and go and go. But when you're on empty, you can't go any further, right? So everyone needs to fill their own tank. And it doesn't, it doesn't have to be, I have to go, away for, when I say I want to go dance, it doesn't mean I have to dance for 8 hours or 10 hours. No, it just means I need the space to do what I need to do that recharges me, that fills me back up. And so it's, again, and this is a big part of my mantra, it's just finding balance in your life, right? A balance of work and play, a balance of doing and being, a balance of the masculine and the feminine, a balance of feeling connected and experiencing some freedom. We all navigate these things throughout our whole life. Esther Perel is one therapist that I really admire. She's a huge catalyst and thought leader in this field, and she talks about the paradoxes of relationships. Um, because we used to live in tribes, and so we had these communities, all around us. But now we're looking to one person to fulfill all of these needs that we used to get from a community, right? And so these paradoxes of freedom versus connection, of the feelings of love and stability versus desire and intrigue and mystery, the sense of I feel safe and secure with you versus I want to go have an adventure. So there are all of these paradoxes in relationships, and these paradoxes that we hold internally, and with each person shows up in a different way based on their own experiences and their own experiences of hurt and their experiences of love, whether it's a pure altruistic love or whether it's a selfish and harmful kind of love. So how can we learn to navigate these paradoxes within ourselves, as well as being a witness to our partner or our friends or our children or our parents? How can we be a witness to other people's experiences? And it really comes down to this open and honest communication. This is what I'm trying to normalize. When first you have to be aware, right? And then you have to figure out, well, what's really going on for me? I'm feeling anxious, and what is this about? Is it about the other person? Is it reminding me of a situation that I experienced in my past? Because this is what happens a lot of times. Whatever comes up for you in this moment is usually a reminder of something that happened to you. And so, the work that you do is to, from Rumi, eliminate those barriers to feeling love and connection. And if I can be vulnerable with you, if I can show up as my authentic self and tell you my truth, no matter how scary it may feel, and granted, I have to feel safe with you, in order to express this to you. This is the way that we connect. This is the way, if I come to you and say, I'm feeling really scared and vulnerable right now. I don't know what's happening with my job. I don't know what's happening with our relationship. I'm afraid that I'm going to lose you. Instead of, it's like emotions are like an iceberg, and usually at the tip of the iceberg are those fight or flight system, fight or flight, anger, the fear, the anxiety, all of those things cover up all these layers of fear and insecurity and self-doubt and disconnection. And so if you can look what's underneath the tip, if you can try to find what's really going on, I really love you. And I'm really scared that I'm going to lose you because I'm feeling so disconnected from you. How do you think the other person is going to respond when they hear that, as opposed to, you're such an idiot and I can't believe you did that? Trust me, I've been guilty of that, right? But when you become conscious with yourself, you're able to show up in a much healthier and kind way. This is what I'm trying to help people do, is like develop this compassion and understanding and acceptance for themselves, so that you can offer that to the people that you love.
Yeah. Wow. No, totally. That's a huge, and it comes down to, like you said, authenticity and being authentic, isn't it? But that's such a hard thing to do. It's like, to be authentic with someone else and to be authentic with yourself is just so scary, because it's like, well, okay, if I have to admit this to this person, then what are they going to think about me, or what are they going to say? And but it can't. I I remember you mentioned it in, well, you've spoken about this in quite a few of your podcasts, but it's this whole concept of feeling and being able to go from the head to the feeling
The
space.
heart.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
huge change in itself. And I think that's, do you think that's what it kind of requires us, for us to go from the head? Because the head is kind of the reaction state, isn't it?
Yes.
When we
Yes.
react, that fight or flight. But then when you go into your feelings and you drop into the heart, and you're kind of like, okay, what do I actually feel right now? And why do I feel that way? And
Yeah.
that's what's so hard, because we're programmed to have that masculine, um, to be in that masculine energy, isn't it? That the masculine, which is, you know, the go, go, go and action, you know, whereas the feminine is
Fix
more
it.
stop. Yeah, exactly. So how do you do that? How do you drop from your head to your heart space? What techniques do you use for that?
Okay, well, first I want to address the question about
The feelings.
the well, about all the thoughts, you know, showing up authentically, um, and why we're afraid to really speak our truth, because we're afraid we're going to be rejected. That's I think that's really kind of what it comes down to. If I say what's really going on for me, you're going to reject me, and I'm going to feel abandoned and disconnected when I already feel abandoned and disconnected, you know. So therefore, instead of telling you my truth, I'm going to hide, I'm going to pretend, I'm going to wear this mask, everything's okay. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in my own relationship I was like, oh, I'm just fine, I'm fine. Whereas, you know, I'd really just come from being a ball on the floor crying my eyes out, you know. So I'm afraid, this thought of I'm going to be judged, I'm going to be criticized, I'm going to be abandoned, I'm going to be rejected, this all prevents us from showing up in our truth, right? So this is,
Have you seen that a lot in your couples therapies? Is there kind of like this huge release
yes.
once someone becomes authentic, once someone actually admits to what they were afraid of?
Yes, yes. This is, you know, our thoughts, our monkey mind, the things that create these loops in our head, that prevent us, because I mean, we can connect intellectually, but our mind, you know, a lot of times we have thoughts. Where do those thoughts come from? I mean, these are these philosophical questions that I have, right? Whose thoughts are they? Are they societal messages? Are they parental messages? Are they previous relationship messages? You know, all of these things create these tapes that run in our head. So this friend and mentor of mine said a couple years ago, which I hold on to, it's like, instead of seeing things through our eyes, we need to learn how to see with our heart. So I have translated that. I mean, there's a lot of work, you know, that's done about the wounded child, and, you know, this inner healing, this inner child, right? And so when you see with your heart, I feel like, if you can, whether it's with yourself, if it's something else you're struggling with, or if it's a partner that you're struggling with, and I couldn't always do this with my partner. I didn't do it often, actually. And maybe if I had, you know, we'd be in a different place. But to see them when they're having that emotional reactivity, and instead of seeing them with your eyes, is to look at them as a 5-year-old little child, and to say, huh, what would that 5-year-old little child want and need right now? And I don't mean it in a condescending or patronizing way. I mean, if you look at a kid that's freaking out, you don't say, grow up, don't feel that way, you're being a jerk. No, you say, come here, let me hold you, I got this. You can freak out. It's okay. I understand that you're feeling really scared right now. I understand that you're feeling lonely and disconnected, but I'm here for you, and I want to be here for you. So how can I show up to you in a way that best supports you and helps you feel more safe and secure? How can I be that safe space for you? And you do it with your partner, and you do it with yourself. How can I be the safe space for myself? How can I experience all the messiness of my own emotions and still know that I'm worthy of love?
Is being just really honest with yourself, isn't it? Really open and honest about how you're actually feeling. God, but it's so, even, I mean, how do we expect our relationships to be okay when we don't even do that with ourselves, right? It's so hard to actually be so honest with yourself, and we don't even have the time normally, only now that we're in this kind of lockdown are people starting to really ask themselves, well, maybe some, I don't know, I have been, but now you're starting to ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Why do I react
Mm-hmm.
this way? Why do I do this way? But up
Mm-hmm.
until now, people have just been on this, you know,
Autopilot,
yeah, autopilot, yeah,
hamster wheel.
hamster wheel, yeah, where we don't even stop to question ourselves why we do certain things, let alone to question it in terms of a relationship or just with anyone.
And I wouldn't say don't have the time. I would say don't take the time.
Mm,
If something, this is, I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I know that when I meditate,
yeah.
I feel so much more peaceful. And when I don't, I don't, but do I always take the time? No, not always. Sometimes I, immediately when I wake up, I pick up my phone. What do I need to take care of? Right? Instead of finding finding that balance for myself, recognizing that this is part of my self-care ritual, just like dancing. I'm sitting on my butt all day. I know I need to get up and dance, right? To just like get this energy out that has been
Yeah,
suppressed.
yeah,
So what are the ways that I need to incorporate into my own life to fill my own tank? It's a continual process. It's never a destination. It's always a journey.
mm,
It's not like, I used to say this to my clients all the time. Oh, I take my magic wand and poof, it's done.
mm,
It's never done. We're never done. We're constantly evolving and changing. And I think this is also part of what's going on around us. This sense of um, not feeling in control and not not knowing how to navigate these changes. It's like, people, we change all the time. We have this false sense of control in our lives and in ourselves and in what's going on around the world. And we realize Mother Nature's in control, right? The only thing that I can control, and this is something that I learned, and something I try to teach my kids, the only thing that you can control is you, and how you respond to a situation and how you react and what you say. Your words matter, your actions matter. They affect, they carry an energy. Your words carry an energy, because a lot of times my kids will go, I listened to that song, it's just words, it doesn't mean anything, or say something to me that's hurtful. And I say, that hurts. Ouch, that hurts. It's just words, it doesn't mean anything.
it's the
No,
energy.
it does.
Mm,
It does. Is the energy helpful and positive and loving and expansive? Or is the energy constricted, um, oppressing, heavy, um, fear-based? I feel like it's either sort of this fear and negative heaviness, or it's this love and joy and lightness and expansiveness. And if you pay attention, or when you start paying attention to your body,
mm.
you know the difference.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's tuning into the feelings, that whole thing of going from the head to the heart
To
and
the
tuning that.
heart.
Yeah.
But
So that,
that's the whole thing. We've been conditioned to not feel
mm,
in our bodies and in our hearts.
the whole
Don't
masculine.
cry, don't feel scared, suck it up, whatever. It's like, no, I need to start honoring my truth. I need to start honoring what's going on for me. it's not a matter of right and wrong. It's a matter of awareness,
Mm.
consciousness.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, being so conscious of how you're doing everything. Yeah, I mean, I very much noticed that, especially last year, because a lot of my work is very much mental based. You know, I have to be on my computer all the time and use my mind and
Do, do.
do. Yeah, so I noticed throughout the course of last year, I became so disconnected from my own feelings to the point where I was just numb. There was just like a point where I was just not really completely disconnected with what I was feeling.
Yeah.
And only now I'm kind of starting to realize that, oh, actually, okay, no, I need to do something to balance the energies. You know, I need to tune back into my body. And dancing is one of the ways to really do that, isn't it? Dancing, anything to do with, you know, physical doing things with your body where you're moving, and it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like getting you back into that space of feeling and being able to feel what's going on inside. But that's such a huge thing, and I've just noticed it over and over again in people. And I guess that's why we're so disconnected, because most of us are on our computers doing work constantly, and you're just like, you know, there's just that you can't.
Right. It's right. It's like your head is from the rest of your body. And so that's why even I think why it's important. I mean, this is what you were talking about, Martina, talking about being in your body. And I've said this about my own dance. It's really one of the very few times where I'm so present, right? I'm really present. It doesn't matter all of the other crap that's going on around me. It doesn't matter what's in the past. It doesn't matter what I'm working towards. It's just being in the moment. And, you know, so any way that you can do that, that you can create this sense of, I'm only here in this moment, whether it's dance, whether it's going for a walk, maybe it's writing. I feel like it's sort of something creative.
Yeah.
You know, that this energy is sort of stuck inside, needing to be expressed. It could be any sort of ways, and you could think, well, I'm not creative. Like, can you create a spreadsheet? I can't, but somebody else can, right? So it could be something like that. I need to create a PowerPoint. I need to, you know, it's some sort of something that's trying to be birthed from you.
Yeah. Is that Kundalini energy, isn't it? That needs to
Yeah.
rise up and be used for something. Yeah.
Yeah. So we, you know, it's a sexual energy, a sensual energy within ourselves. But I really feel like, you know, because some people just say it's sexual, but it's not. It's really this creative life force. What are you creating in your life? What kind of life are you trying to birth? What kind of relationships are you trying to create? What kind of impact are you trying to create? How are you trying to evolve and show up in the world? I mean, these are all things that come from within, and it's based on my truth. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna adopt from them and I'm gonna do it their way. I can't possibly, because I'm me. I'm not them. So how do you honor what's true for you and what's inside of you, waiting to show up in the world?
Yeah. Yes. No, totally. It's just honoring that truth within you, and it's taking the time to really find out what it is that you really is your truth. Because again, like so many of us don't know what our truth is. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really having to go back to square one, isn't it? And exploring what are your main, what are your desires, what are your values, what do you want to do in life? And like you've pretty much been doing that, you know, with everything that you're doing now. You have a podcast, you know, you're like a love alchemist, sex relationship transformation therapist. You do dance, you do all types of things. So that's so amazing, because that's the stuff that nourishes you. And then from that, it's like you, now your cup is full, right? Now you can give out that love and have it being returned. So
Mm-hmm.
what would you say for couples, say for example, because what I've seen and, well, what I've heard in terms of the whole you know, now we're entering the age of Aquarius, and this whole you know, spiritual stuff is going on, and people becoming a lot more aware. But there's also at the same time people who are not really into it, and who are not so interested in, you know, self-development or growing themselves, which is fair enough. You know, everyone has their own choice. But it's kind of like, there's this dynamic now going on where people who have been in a relationship for such a long time, who at the time when they first got into the relationship were very much on the same level, but then one person, because they started, trying to self-develop and evolve spiritually and all that, that kind of took them on a different level. So do you see that? Do you see this dynamic in your own therapy? And
Mhm.
how do you mitigate that? What do you say? Like, how do you work that with people?
Well, I actually wanted to say something about the levels.
Mm, yeah.
There's no higher and lower. I mean, and I judged. This is this is some of my own internal work, was being very judgmental about how my partner was showing up. And um and I felt, oh, well, I'm better than you because I'm doing, no, that's bullshit. This is where I'm judging you, and this is what I'm trying to teach about. It's like, we all have the opportunity to make choices for ourselves, right? You can't choose for anybody else. And how someone chooses to live their life is really none of my business, right? Unless I'm in relationship with them, then it is my business. And I choose, do I resonate with you? Do I want to live my life in alignment with the way that you live your life? And I really struggle with that for a long time. And I think a lot of people do. And so, these are where you have these conscious conversations about, this is how I want to create my life, and this is how I want my relationships to look. And are you on board with this? Or, can we have a conversation about, maybe I want to do it ABC way and you want to do it XYZ way. And maybe there's some place in the middle, JKLMNOP or whatever you say, about where we can, create something that's both mutually fulfilling and satisfying. I think this is, it's not, I mean, this is something that was said last night in my perfect storm in my family. It's like, well, I just needed to prove that I'm right. And it's like, you proving that you're right creates disconnect and a lack of sense of safety and trust. I understand that you have a valid viewpoint and the other person has a valid viewpoint. And so let's figure out a way to say, you know what, we're on the same team. And really the goal is to feel peace and connection and love and acceptance. That's the goal of any relationship. And if you're fighting against that goal, it ain't going to work. You have to be working towards this common mission and purpose. And that was one thing that Martina, you mentioned before. It's a woman who runs a Tantra Institute in Australia. She's a beautiful, beautiful woman. We had this amazing conversation podcast with both her and her partner, and then them together. And she said, when you are in partnership and somebody does something to hurt you, she's learned to just say, ouch, that really hurt. And so it's not blame, shame, judgment, guilt, criticism. It's, this is how this affected me. And can we have a conversation about what needs to happen in order for us to feel connected again? This is something that I grew up hearing. My parents were super involved in this spiritual movement called the Encounter Movement. And it was, this sort of comes back to the helping or harming of the relationship. Are you doing things that are harming a relationship and building a wall between you and the other person? Because you can lay brick by brick and form this big wall between you that can't be knocked down. Or you can do things that eliminate those bricks and really create a bridge of connection between the two of you. So are you building walls? Are you building bridges? Are you seeing with your eyes, or are you feeling with your heart? You seeing with your heart? Are you extending the same sort of compassion, understanding, acceptance, and non-judgment to your partner or to your kids or to your, friends that you want extended to you. It kind of always comes down to the golden rule, like treat others as you want to be treated,
Yeah.
and treat yourself like you want others to treat you. So that's where it all starts with you.
Yeah. Yeah, that same story with whatever's on the inside is reflected on the outside. It definitely comes back to that inner work, and having that inner trust and
Mhm.
self-love that
Yeah.
you can give out. So, oh God, so how do you see this kind of progressing? Because things, I mean, everything's changing, like from relationships to the economy to everything is just shifting dramatically, and it's just like, oh man, it's like it's hard to keep up with what the hell's going on. But how do you see how do you see relationships kind of progressing now? Everyone's talking about conscious relationships and the spiritual stuff, and you don't, of course, you don't have to be spiritual, but I guess it's just this idea that we now need to be in conscious relationships. You can no longer be in a relationship just for the sake of being with someone. It has to be someone that resonates with you, that
Mhm.
wants similar things as you do. So do you see that kind of shifting, a lot more people shifting to that, and just being kind of more consciously aware of the partners that they're choosing, so that they're more related to what they're wanting in life? Or
Well, I think that's a great place to start, and that's the tricky part of relationships, is because people evolve, people continually change. And so, how are you changing, and how is your partner changing, and are you still aligned? And, I would really love to have a long-term monogamous relationship eventually, because it feels really nice when you have somebody that you can lean on, and you have a safe place to fall apart when you want to fall apart, and you have a fun place to share an adventure with somebody too, right? Um, but I feel like a lot of people are sort of questioning the paradigms of relationship and how people are showing up. And this this is something that Esther Perel says. She's like, longevity is not the definition of a good relationship. There are plenty of long-term relationships that are not very healthy and loving. So she has this thing that she says, uh, it would be interesting for people to have an annual contract with an option to renew. And you can say, in my marriage, right? In my marriage, I'm I'm in it for the long haul, but every year, let's have a reevaluation. How's this working? What's good for you? What's challenging for you? What do we want to create that's different? And you can continually recreate your relationship, as long as you have open and honest conversations, and to say, yeah, I'm still here for you. I still got this. I still trust you. And the other partner to say the same. It's really a beautiful thing when somebody unconditionally loves you. I mean, this is the goal, right? Unconditional love for yourself, this kindness, this compassion, this acceptance, this understanding, this forgiveness, when you hurt somebody, and even the spiritual perspective that things aren't happening to you, they're happening for you, as a way for you to, again, turn within and say, what's going on for me? Where am I blocking love? Where do I need to be more loving? Where do I need to feel connected? Where do I need to create more invitations, or extend more invitations for connection rather than disconnection? So these are all questions that run through my head always, which is why I love to talk about this stuff.
Where does the whole tantric thing comes into this then, and not necessarily just in terms of sex, but in terms of that, because yeah, most people think of the tantric thing as just sex, but it's a lot more than
Just
that.
sex.
Teaching, and it's a way, it's a belief, or something, not a belief, but a way of seeing energies and stuff, right?
it's a way of living. It's a way of being present. You know, I just interviewed another guy who has a tantric institute in New York, and he does this tantra speed dating, which is really cool. And
like
yeah, it's all about relationship exercises and showing up in your full presence, not hiding and pretending, being authentic. And I asked him, you know, hey guy, you know, how did you get into this? And he told me his story, and he said, why are you interested in it? And I said, well, actually, I only really heard the name in the last several years, but really this is the way that I've been living my life, you know, trying to show up present, trying to be authentic, trying not to hide and pretend, even though I have. But it's this awareness of being in this present moment. And, you know, it can translate, of course, in the bedroom, but the bedroom, we don't spend that much time in our bedrooms, right? We don't spend that much time actually doing sex, even though we talk a lot about sex or think a lot about sex. It's really ways of showing up in the world that help us feel that deep sense of compassion. And the word that has been spinning around in my head this last week is reverence. It's this real deep honor, respect, like this sense of, I bow down to the sacred in you. I see the sacred in you.
Yeah.
And I hope that you see the sacred in me, because this is that connection that we all long for. This is, oh, I'm gonna get, wow, I'm feeling really emotional right now.
Really, yeah, it's like
this
that deep
this
soulful.
this deep longing that I have to connect to my source. It's this deep longing that I have to connect to myself. It's this deep longing that I have to connect to the people that I love and care for. It's this deep longing that I have to connect with you. It's this deep longing that I have to connect, to feel connected, to feel that I'm part of a greater whole, to feel that however I show up, I'm worthy of that love that I desire. I'm worthy, and so are you.
Wow. Oh God, that was really deep. Oh, yeah,
That took, wow.
that was, yeah, I think, God, yeah, I think we all felt that. Thank you for that. That was really beautiful.
Thank you for letting me show up vulnerably so that I can share. I mean, this is what I'm here to share. This is my passion and my mission and my work, to help everyone experience that deep connection that comes from up here, out there around us, and that we all desire. We all desire it. And
Totally.
so, how do we show up for ourselves in this way? And how do we learn to show up for each other in the same way?
Yeah, especially now in the times that we're in now, it's so critical, isn't it? Just having that authentic presence and connection with someone. Wow. Wow, Dawn, thank you so much. That was really beautiful. And that was such an unexpected way to end.
Surprise.
That really hit me. Wow. That was, yeah. I think that the truth of what you were saying really just like shone through that, because it's really it's true. And it's so hard for, it's just so hard to let those guards down. And even now, like being here, I'm kind of like, no, I need to smile. It's like, it's so hard. It's very, very hard. But
Mhm.
yeah, no, thank you for that. That was really beautiful to share this with you and everything that you've
Thank you.
said. Yeah.
Thank you for letting me share. I mean, I've been talking about this my whole life. And, you know, I'm trying to figure out how to show up and
Oh, you're
and
doing it.
and
You're doing
share
it.
it and I say teach it, but it's, you know, I'm not really teaching it. We all know from a deep place that this is what we want. You know, this is what we all feel and need. We just don't know how to do it. You know, again, it goes back to that Rumi, eliminating the barriers that prevent us from experiencing it. And so this is, you know, the self-love, the self-compassion, the self-understanding, the non-judgment. It starts with you. You know, the thing that I say at the end of every one of my podcasts is the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. So when you show up in a conscious way with yourself and you honor what's going on for you and you process and you know, figure out the ways that you want to change and evolve and grow, you know, what you're looking for, you know, that sense of connection and love and feeling joy and feeling inspired and really like appreciation for who you are and for the life that you're living, right?
Totally.
You know, creating this beautiful life for yourself and the people in your life, you know, because we all want to, girls just want to have fun. We all want to have fun. We all want to laugh. We all want to, you know, enjoy ourselves and, you know, feel appreciation and gratitude. And, you know, we're all seeking positive.
Yeah, totally.
So, you know, taking the sufferings and taking the heartaches that you had and have experienced and transmuting them into
Transforming.
something that's more beneficial for you and for, you know, for the world that you show up in. You know, all the people, all the service workers that are showing up every day, risking their lives, you know, to take care of others who can't take care of themselves. All of the, you know, restaurant workers that are still continuing to cook for us, who are having delivery brought to our house every day. All of the people that are volunteering and, you know, helping distribute food to the hungry and the homeless. You know, I mean, all it's interesting because, you know, 9/11, I just interviewed a pilot. 9/11 affected, you know, New York and America and overall the travel industry throughout the world, but everyone around the world is experiencing the ripple effect of this virus. And so we're realizing that we are all connected. You know, we're all in this together, regardless of how we show up and what we do about it. But you know, how do we learn to lean on each other, and how do we learn to show up for each other?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And that can only come from living from the heart and being completely in touch with that feeling space, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Being authentic. Which we'll
Mm-hmm.
get there. We'll get there. It just
I do. Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's so much hope, you know, I mean, there's a lot of despair that people are experiencing, but there's also a lot of hope. And, you know, I've always tried to live my life with hope because I trust in the greater good. I trust in, um, I trust in
how connected.
this, how connected we are. And I trust that everything's going to be okay. Because this is how I choose to live my life. This is what I choose to focus on. I choose not to focus on the fear and the disconnection and the craziness. I try to focus on the love and the humanity and the connection and the heart, because we all experience, you know, both.
That's what
And
it's about. Yeah, exactly.
we all experience both. So let's normalize both, and let's try to lean into and focus on where we want to grow, you know, how we want to create, what we want to build, you know, because you're part of this this ecosystem, this
Yeah,
worldwide ecosystem. So what do you want to build? How do you want to contribute? How do you want to show up every day for yourself and for the people around you?
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Wow. Thank you so much, Dawn. This was so
Thank
amazing.
you for having me. Oh my God, I love this conversation and I adore you.
Sure, you as well. Thank you. No, this was so just so insightful and so much wisdom in there that I think so many people can just take away so much from, because this is what we're dealing with right now. Relationships, it's like the core thing is like on everyone's minds, because we're either dealing with them or not dealing with them by being just with ourselves. So yeah, that's definitely a big one to work through. So hopefully, yeah, just being in the heart. How can people find you if anyone wanted to have a session with you or listen to more of your amazing podcasts?
So my podcast is on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. You know, there are numerous different podcast platforms, but it's called Wake Up to Real Love. I just published my 44th episode, and it's a lot of people's stories of their struggles in relationships and how they triumphed. You know, all sorts of different people's experiences with anxiety, depression, addiction, betrayal, divorce, disconnection. And then there's some experts in the field who help people, you know, overcome these issues. And so they can find me at Wake Up to Real Love podcast. Please subscribe and share with all your friends so that we can create more real love in the world. And then I'm on Facebook and Instagram as The Awakening with Dawn. I post some videos. I've been sort of retreating a little bit, trying to recreate whatever. I'm working on a website right now that will be called The Awakening with Dawn, and all of my information will be on there. I also have a new You Can Book Me thing that you can put. It's Dawn Richard, spelled like Richard, DAWNRICHARD you can book me, or youcanbook.me. And I offer free 30-minute consultations to get a sense of, you know, how I can show up for you if you would like to work for me. I do one-on-one work, I do group work. I have, you know, I've been creating these different projects and programs over the last, totally creating. Lots of stuff is being birthed out of me. I did my kids a long time ago, but all this other stuff is being birthed out of me. So please connect with me, send me direct messages. I'd be happy to help you and figure out how I can best support you, because it is my mission. The most important relationship you'll ever have is with yourself. So start by loving and accepting yourself, and then you can extend it to everybody else around you. So thank you so much, Desi, for having me. You're awesome.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
And thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you check out Dawn's page and her podcast as well. And until next time, thank you.
Take care.